As someone who's done a couple of really long road trips in my Tesla Model 3, it got me really thinking about what a road trip in an Aptera would really look like all the charging stops in that. So I sat down and I really thought this through. Now, we are going to make quite a few assumptions in this. For one, we're going to assume that their claimed specs are accurate. They're 400 miles of range and 44 kilowatt hour battery for the launch edition. And I believe they've said somewhere between 40 to 60 kilowatts of DC fast charging peak rate. So we're going to split the difference and say 50. And of course, that 400 miles of range is EPA, which is a mixed test cycle. And of course, on a road trip, you're going to be doing mostly highway. I've seen a figure floating around for about 350 miles of estimated highway range, which is about a 12.5% reduction from the EPA range, which, given how efficient the Aptera is, that sounds about right to me. So this is all going to be pretty much just wild speculation, but I have a feeling that we're going to be at least pretty close to the ballpark of reality. One thing I do want to make note is that 50 kilowatt charging compared to the size of the battery is actually on the low side, like really low. Just as a point of reference, my Tesla Model 3 has a 60 kilowatt hour battery and it has a peak charging speed of 170 kilowatts. My Model 3 is a 400 volt architecture battery, and although it hasn't been confirmed, I think it's going to be safe to assume that the Aptera's is a 400 volt architecture as well. So the only difference between my Model 3 and the Aptera is really just capacity. And so if we scale down my car's capacity to the Aptera's, in theory, that would be a peak charging rate of around 124 kilowatts, but it's not. It's much lower. What I'm hoping this means is that although the peak charge rate is actually lower compared to what it theoretically could be, it holds that deep into the battery pack, and so it's a somewhat flat curve. And I did some digging, and in theory, it should be able to hold that until about 60%. So if I'm right at all about that, that means that the sweet spot will be pulling in at about 10% because most people aren't going to want to pull in close to dead. Charge up to 60%. That's about a 50% charge, assuming, again, a lot of assumptions here, that you can maintain that 50 kilowatt charging rate. That works out to be about almost 27 minutes from 10% to 60%. And if we use that highway range that we found earlier, that works out to be about 175 miles in between charging stops. In an alternate reality where everybody drove the speed limit, that would be roughly 2.5 hours in between charging stops. Stop, charge for 27 minutes, and then another 2.5 hours of driving. But since we actually live in reality where people don't drive the speed limits and are realistically doing probably 80, accounting for the extra drag from the slightly faster speeds, I'm going to guess that's going to be in the neighborhood of 2 hours of driving and 160 miles of range. So 160 miles, 2 hours of driving, stop, charge for 27 minutes, rinse and repeat. Alternatively, you could do more frequent but shorter stops, roughly 15-minute charging stops and an hour or so of driving. As for the charging itself, the Aptera obviously has built-in NACS, so it'll work with version 3 and newer Tesla superchargers, as well as any third-party charging stations that implement NACS. The very nature of NACS means, in theory, the Aptera should be compatible with CCS stations as well through the use of a physical adapter. There's only one problem, is that the Aptera's NACS port is really recessed, and no off-the-shelf NACS to CCS adapter will likely fit, so something will have to be developed specifically for the Aptera with an extended NACS head. So just as an example road trip, let's take a look at the road trip that me and my wife frequently do from basically just outside of Toronto to Halifax in Nova Scotia. That's roughly a 1,077 mile drive. We do most of the driving on the first day, roughly 689 miles, stop overnight at a specific motel we like, and then do the rest on the second day, roughly 388 miles. The reason we like this specific motel that we stay at is because it has J1772 charging stations, so you can plug in your EV and leave in the morning with a full charge. So on this road trip, you've got your Aptera. Let's assume you've charged up to 100% because you know you're heading out on a road trip. So that's basically 4 hours of driving right out of the gate to do roughly 320 miles before you get to your first charging stop. First charging stop, let's round it up. Let's say half an hour charging to do another 2 hours of driving, another 160 miles. Your second charging stop of the day, then 1/3 and final charging stop for the day, give or take 10 minutes, a little bit of a splash and dash to do the final 50 miles to the motel. Fully charge overnight, so you've got another 4 hours of driving, 320 miles. Then there'd only be like one charging stop for a little over 10 minutes. Then you have enough range to get to Halifax. All in all, you're looking at about an hour and a half, actually closer to an hour and 20 minutes of pure charging stops on that 2-day road trip. And you know what? That's actually pretty much right in line with my experience with my Tesla Model 3. Although in our case, it's a couple more charging stops for shorter duration. I'm really looking forward to getting my Aptera and actually seeing how reality stacks up to this purely hypothetical scenario. A lot of people look at that roughly 50 kilowatt charging speed and think it's going to suck, but they don't account for how efficient the Aptera is. Now, if you're interested in getting an Aptera, I'm going to take this opportunity to shill my affiliate link. It gives you $30 off the $100 reservation fee and helps me build credit towards my own. If you're new to the channel, I'm all about unconventional electric adventuring, including planning to build out a crazy Aptera adventure build. So make sure you're subscribed if you're into that shit.